were asked, I come in today and say, okay, we need 10%. I don't know, you can choose. I say that because we're actually. But, you know, I like it where I live, right? Whatever it takes. And I will give of myself. You know, I remember today. Okay, anybody not about half of you? You know, when you talk football, I'm a Raider. How I feel and grieve, taking a hit. So, growing up, and I remember in we had a sheriff, and he'd love to have us to sacrifice bunt. Basically, you can advance. And we're fairly successful. Sometimes sometimes we gotta take a sacrifice. Philippians chapter 2, also to the interests of others. Times where you be challenged about what you want the church, and that is what do Christian community as well. This way, sometimes now I want to explain this. Again, the people commended all. So the temple and the city walls have been rebuilt, but the city itself had a lot of work to be done. You know, there was still much to be done. And there were people that were willing to move in there and be a part of building something, even though I think they went in there and said, we don't have a Walmart over here. You know, we don't have grocery stores yet. You ever watch these, like we've seen, like other parts of the country where, you know, disasters come along and they completely wipe out the city? You know, Paradise was another one of those places burned down and everything. And I always think about, how do you even begin to go about rebuilding, or would you even try? You know, how many people just move to another city that already has everything they need, but then there are other people who say, this is our city, we're going to stay here, we're going to be a part of building this. And I think, man, that's crazy, because it doesn't have everything. They didn't have everything that Jerusalem once had, or that it would have in the future, but they said, we're going to be a part of building that. I remember when the first church that I ever pastored was a church plant, and my wife and Amy, we were out Olive Knolls and felt like God led us down to Rancho San Diego to plant a church. And we had Dawson, who was about 1.5 years old. Amy was pregnant with Noah. We got about 5 people to help us. You know, first Sunday we had 14 people, and we called them preseason services. We did it for a while. 14 of us gathered together to just begin this, you know, this church. And on top of that, we decided to plant our church about a half mile from Skyline Wesleyan Church, who had a pastor by the name of John Maxwell, you might have heard of. And then if you go about 2 miles over this way, there's another church, a guy David Jeremiah, you might have heard of. He had his church there, massive mega churches. And here's our little church of 14. You know, and it always amazed me when people, not just that people came, but they stayed. That was more amazing. You know, it really wasn't as amazing to me that they came, but when they chose to stay, I'm like, seriously? You want to stay with us? You know, and you can go over there, and any one of these places, you get children's ministry like Disneyland. You know, worship like, you know, Hillsong and you know, preaching way better than me. You know, all these different things, you know, and there were these people who said, no, we want to come, we want to be a part of building something. And so I have great admiration because sometimes God calls us to invest before it has everything that we would like. This is a good church, but I'm betting, just like every church, there are things that you wish it had that it doesn't yet at this point. Every church, has, man, we wish we were this or that or whatever. And in Bakersfield, there are a lot of churches, like some really good ones, doing a great job. And you could be at any variety of places, and you've chosen to be here, which is awesome. And I love that. And I just want to encourage you for your commitment to be a part of building something. And I'm praying for, all of our churches and the leadership, just people will remain faithful. And I believe that if we do, and we're faithful to that, and we commit ourselves to God and we're in prayer, that God will do something that only God can do that's got his fingerprints written all over it. Because that's what God does. God's in the resurrection business. In case you don't notice, got a little cross behind here. Jesus can bring new life to everything. But he uses us to be a part of that. This morning, I just want to call us to prayer. Just to intercede. Invite the worship team to come back up here. I want to invite you to stand as well. And I just want to invite you, maybe you feel compelled to come to the altars and just kneel and just pray, pray for the board as they're going through this process. Pray for the future pastor and the ministry team. Pray for just all the different things just to intercede. I believe that God will honor that. And by the way, let me say this too, that I think, in order for me to step in this role as district superintendent, I had to step out of the role of pastoring the last church I was at. And they loved us and they didn't love that, But one of the things, we had 2 services there, and so I encouraged them to just meet. We called it 10 at 10:10. At 10:10 each week, they would gather for 10 minutes and they would just pray each week. And just begin to pray and invite God. And they're still doing that in this process, and I believe